Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to another episode of my YouTube channel or in my YouTube channel. I'm excited to be back here. So today I'm recording a video that I think is quite important, and I'm going to be speaking about, something that we don't really speak about as much, and sometimes it's seen as negative. Like I mentioned in a couple of like my previous videos that we're starting a new series. I don't have a name for the series yet, but I know that the series is going to be focused on transformation, becoming a new you. Just really becoming transformed. And I'm sure just like me, there are a lot of people who have had like dreams, visions, like in every new year, new season, they're like images for what you want to achieve. So I feel like we're always on a becoming journey, we're always on a transformational journey. You become a different person, you stay on that level for a while, and then you know it's time to become a different person. So it's like that continuous transformation and evolving is what makes successful individuals, right? So I don't think like this is officially like in the series, but since we don't have a name for the series, I'm just going to be recording like and sharing like these things I've learned or these videos with you, and maybe at some point we'll figure out a name for it. But today I just want to speak about, and I think for me, when I think about like growth and transformation, this is a very important part of growth and transformation. And sometimes people see it as a bad thing. Sometimes people see it as a negative thing. But I think it's a very important path. And we're going to be talking about detachment. I remember a couple of years ago, I think the year was 2019. Yeah, it was 2019. So that's about 5, 6 years ago. I had finished uni. I was turning 21. It was a beautiful year. I was back in Lagos, ready to live the Lagos lifestyle. And I was, in Lagos. I'd finished uni. Most of my friends were graduated together. I think I already had a job. I was working on the island, and I didn't know that that year was about to become a year that marked, a huge and radical transformation and change in my life. But as I got into the year, I was working, I was doing things. I turned 21. I remember going to the beach with my friends on my birthday, and then we went for like this event and this thing. But after I turned 21, a lot of things just started to sort of change in my life. I've been a Christian for years. I'd been a tongue speaking Christian for years. In fact, I've not only been a tongue speaking Christian for years, I wasn't in ministry per se, but it felt like ministry had been chasing me around. Meaning, like I had friends that were in ministry. I had people that reached out to me to say, there's a call of God upon your life. There's this, there's that. So I had these friends, this group of friends. They were all guys, and they used to drag me. We'll go and pray. We'll do vigil. But while I was doing all of those things, I don't think that I was still really into it. I wasn't necessarily like committed or into it. So I was somewhat lukewarm, to a degree, and I was still having fun. I was still living the uni young girl life, having fun, going to parties and whatnot. But in that year, 2019, I remember that I don't think anything happened to me. For some people, they maybe have a near death accident or something. Nothing happened to me. I just woke up one morning and I just knew that it was time to be new. I just knew that God was calling me to more. And there were a lot of things that started to happen in that year for me. I remember like I was planted in an assembly. I was going to that church. I'd moved to Lagos. I used to go to the church when I was in uni. So I'd moved to Lagos and I was still going to that church. But one of the first things that God did for me was so I remember there was another church that had started, I think the year before or earlier in that year. I think the year before. And a lot of people I used to go to that church. How do I explain? I used to go to a version of that church when I was on campus, but now they had launched like a new version, a young adult version. So I saw it. I know quite a number of people that were going, but I never went because I'd stopped attending the church in uni. But one day I was with my friend, one of my, then best friends, and I'm like, you know what? Let's even go to this church. Let's see what's happening there. There was somebody. I'm like, let me even go and see this person. Let's even go and see, what's going on there. It was like a very random stroll in, but I never strolled out. I had such an encounter with God, and I just knew it never left me. I knew that that was my church, and I knew that I needed to come back there. This is now becoming the new story, but that's not what I'm here for. But anyways, that year, with church, with other things, I started to feel like a degree of transformation. Felt like God was calling me to be more committed to His work, calling me to be more committed to Him. Actually, not even to His work, to Him. God started to just really show me, what it means to respond to the love of God. I think that sometimes we're lukewarm, we're inconsistent with God because we fully not grasped the magnitude of His love and what our response to that love should be. So it felt like these were things that God was dealing with me in. It was like, okay, this is how you need to be. And I feel like God radically, changed my life over a period of time in that year. And one of the things that I had to do in that year as I was becoming was to detach. And that's really what I want to talk to us about today. And it goes back, if you watch the video where I talk, the get to know me video, I spoke about the quote from Mrs. Ibukan Wishika about where you're coming from and not support where you're going to. And I shared how this had been a recurring theme in my life, right? I think in that season, this was also one of those themes where it was like, I felt like I was being called to deeper consecration. I couldn't go to parties anymore. There was just some conversations there was just some slangs or things that I couldn't say anymore. In fact, I was in a relationship with somebody at that time, and I just knew that I needed to leave that relationship. And it wasn't necessarily the easiest thing, right? Because sometimes when you're committed to like relationships and certain things, you value people, you love people. For me in that season, it felt like everything and everyone I knew, I needed to release them. And a lot of times, this happens for a lot of people. When you've been called to more, when you're in a season of transformation, it might not even be spiritually. It might even be like with money, with business. Like you've hit a new layer of like revenue in your business. You're in a new level where you're like doing more things, you're doing bigger things, and you're being called to expanded thinking. But you're stuck with relationships, with associations that are still stuck with poverty mindset. And sometimes, we see it around us. That like you're trying to get into something, and people around you are not seeing it, and we struggle. But I tell you, detachment is such a very important tool for transformation. I know that it might sound negative, it might sound like, oh, you're using people or you're leaving people or people have been there for you from the beginning. And yes, people have been there and it's good to appreciate and love people. But it becomes a problem if these people that have been there for you in a certain season still associate you with your previous season. It becomes a problem if these people, refuse to allow you become new. So for example, maybe you're in a new layer of like financial prosperity and it feels like you're trying to become more, and then you decide to start traveling, and then you have people around you are saying, oh, why are you traveling, you're wasting money, or what is wrong with you, become proud. You need to detach from those people. I know we don't like to talk about this a lot, but where you're going to is more important than where you're coming from, especially when you're moving with a sense of clarity and purpose. For me in this season, like I was becoming a lot more like grounded spiritually, right? I'd moved to Lagos. I was also becoming more like grounded, like with my work at that time. And I remember like in that season, there were a lot of things I had to detach from. I had to walk away from that relationship I'd been in for over a year. I think at that time, the relationship was like coming close to 2 years. He was a great guy, amazing guy, didn't do anything bad to me. I will tell you that he was a solid guy, still a solid guy. But I just knew that for the kind of like spiritual intensity I was coming into and consecration, he didn't get it. And even when it comes to detaching, right, sometimes it's not like you just leave people. You can have conversations. I remember like trying to like have conversations with this person, like, oh, this is where we are, this is where I am now, are you like, what do you think about it? It was just like, you're in a phase, you're gonna get over it. I'm in a phase, care. So what do you mean I'm in a phase, I'm going to get over it? I just knew that I had to let go of that relationship. It was a bit hard. It was a bit sad because, again, like I said, he's a great guy. He didn't do anything wrong to me. That relationship was a very good relationship to a degree. But I let go of that relationship, and I also let go of friendships. I had some of my closest friends were friends from uni, and I remember like one time, like two of my friends came to see me in my house, and then I was just talking to them about where I am. I was talking about transformation. And anybody that knows me, if you have, you guys are watching this video, you can tell I'm very passionate about certain things. So when I'm passionate about transformation. So I was just talking this is where I am. I think all of us, we need to start to think about this. We need to see this. We need to see that. In my mind, I was like jeering up my friends, like, we have to be calm. We need to, But I remember a couple of weeks later, I can't remember, but one of those two friends, which was then my closest friend, was saying, I don't know if she told me directly or if she told somebody or if it was a conversation that came up later, but she was like, oh, she didn't she was not happy. She felt like, oh, I made it sound like she didn't know what she was doing with her life, like I'm the only one. And mind you, at this time I was done with school. She wasn't, because she was doing a 5-year course, or I mean, she said something around that. And I think it was then it dawned on me that, oh my God, this cannot work. Not because she's a bad person or I'm a bad person, but it's just misalignment. And I immediately started to detach from that relationship. And when I look at my life, I look back in the past couple of years, I think that one of the sacrifices I've had to pay for growth and transformation and where I am now is detaching from relationships, from things, from groups. I had another best friend who was still cool, very cool, but even our relationship took a hit at that time because we just were not on the same level. And you see, you have to be very sensitive and very protective about about your transformation. I don't know how to explain it, but you have to be very sensitive and protective about it, right? Especially in the becoming, in the early stages. Detachment is important. You can go back. You guys might never be as close as you were, and maybe that's fine, right? And I remember just letting go of all of those relationships because we couldn't just have conversations anymore, because we're not saying the same things, we're not saying the same things. We're just different people. And sometimes for some people, the reason why you're struggling with becoming this new version of yourself is because you're so stuck on the people you've known, where you've come from. You're so worried, oh my God, what are my friends going to say? I'm going to become lonely. You have to be fine with the potential or possibility of becoming lonely or being alone, because growth, transformation, becoming a new person is a personal journey. Nobody can take that responsibility for you. It is your responsibility. And sometimes it's lonely. And that's the truth. That journey was a bit lonely. But I also feel like life is so interesting. God is so good that the moment you say that I'm going to make the sacrifice and I'm going to stretch, He will begin to bring you into new relationship and compensate you. And that's what started to happen for me. It was like I left those relationships, and I remember the next year, which was 2020, I started to just pray to God for fresh relationships. And I tell you guys, I came into so many new relationships, and a lot of these relationships were people that actually came to meet me and say, you know what, I feel like we should become closer. It felt like God was just compensating me. And I've had some of those new relationships for years. In fact, it's not even like those relationships were new. It was people that I'd known before. There were some people I'd known from uni, but we just became closer, right? And of course, there are new friendships. So in every season of my life, I find that every time I say that God, or every time I say, you know what, I'm just going to let go of what I have known. And detachment is not only with people, it's with thought patterns, it's with familiar places, it's with environment. Every time you let go of what feels familiar, what you know, and take that leap of faith to come into what feels unknown and scary, God rewards you with new relationships, new things. It will be a stretch. It can be a stretch. Yeah, seasons of sacrifices and loneliness. But I tell you, it's worth it. This is 5-6 years later. I'm like, oh my God, I became a different person. I became a completely different person. Right? I became a completely different person. I'm so thankful for who I am. And even in this season, when I'm in the new, it's a prayer I always pray. I'm always like, God, anything you need to take out of my life for me to become and step into the new season, I release it. I'm not holding on to any attachment. I'm not holding on to anything, to any person. It's going to hurt me. It's going to be hard for me. It's going to be hard for them. But God, I release it. Whether it's an environment, whether it's a habit, whether it's a thought pattern, whether it's a person, for you to truly become and transform, we must all learn the laws of detachment. Are people detached from me? Yes. I had someone who was my bestest friend when we were in uni. We did pretty great together and everything. She came into a new season in her life, and she probably thought that it was better for her to focus on this new season, and she detached. And of course, there are always better ways to do things, but I'm not going to be stuck up on the fact that, me and somebody, stop being close. Maybe for her new season, it was what was better for her. And like again, like I said, when you focus on your growth, you come into fresh relationships. Now, am I saying relationships and things are not important? Of course not. I've had friendships for years. And again, even in that season of detachment, interestingly, there were some of my friends that were really close who were also still in that framework where I was living, who were still very close friends till today. And I love them so much because, again, the law of detaching and all of that is not necessarily from a place of I'm better than you. No, it's more from a place of I'm becoming a new person. Can you accommodate this new person I'm becoming? Can you allow me become? If the answer is yes, then there's no need to detach. But if the answer is no, you need to detach fast. So for me, where I had like maybe like five close friends, right? There are two of them that were still very close. In fact, they're my G's, they're my girls, they're my babes. If I'm not two, there is three of them actually. Three of them were still very close. They're still very much in my inner circle, my closest circle. They're still my closest girls. And the reason why is because they allowed me to be calm. They were not offended when I had moments of, being distant. They were not offended when my lingo started to change. In fact, a lot of them also transformed. They went on their own journey. But then there's like two or three other people that, we're no longer close. We're no longer, I mean, we're cool, but we're not close. And that's because they couldn't go on that journey with me. So when I talk about detachment, I'm not saying treat people like trash or just, leave people or just, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying anybody, anything, any environment, any thought pattern, anything that would not allow you become the new version of you of who you need to become, you need to detach from it. You cannot be sentimental about your life. You cannot be sentimental about who you're becoming. You cannot be sentimental about where you want to go to. There's so much that you have to become, and detachment is a very important part. And in fact, some of the detachment is even from like habits. It's not even with people, it's with you. I remember that same 2019, I don't know if it was 2019 or 2020. The next year I started like with this coaching program, and I sat myself down. I became like, I told myself, you know what, I set like standards and I started to just stick with it. I remember then in my family, I'm sure they're just like, what was going on with me? Because I was praying a lot. I would sit down, I would write, I would meditate, I would journal. I started to set things down, and that till today, people say to me, you're very driven, you're very focused. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I've always been like that since I was a child. But like choosing to be intentional about that refined it for me, and it helped me get more results and achieve more things. So detachment is very important. And if you're listening to me or watching this video, you're very sentimental about your relationships or about like places or people or habits, you can become the next version of yourself if you're still holding on and attaching to the past. It's not possible. It's not possible. Something has to give for who you're becoming. That is what I wanted to share with us today. It can be hard, but it always gets better. I mean, I'm in a better relationship. I'm not even in a better, I'm engaged, I'm getting married to a better, no, I'm not going to say better person. I'm not going to do that because, he was a good person too. But a better person for me. I think that's the better word. With my life, I'm living in the fullness of my calling. I've done so much better. And even now, I'm in a season of becoming new. And I'm constantly asking myself, what do I need to detach from? It might not be people, it might be things, it might be thought patterns, it might even be you. You need to detach from yourself, but there's always a price to pay. But every time you pay that price, there's always a beautiful reward. Even if it costs you something, you always be thankful at the end of the day for who you become. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share with us today. I hope that this has been enlightening for you. If you're going through a season where you need to become a different person, if I know a better you, a different version of you, and you're trying to change, you want to subscribe to my channel because I'm going to be talking more about like transformation, becoming new, becoming a better version of yourself. Whether you're a woman, a man, an adult, whatever it is, you want to subscribe to this channel, you can drop some comment. I'm going to be rooting for you, cheering you on. Where this is a journey of becoming new. This is a journey of becoming that millionaire, billionaire you've seen, becoming that man and woman of influence, becoming that person who's walking in the fullness of their purpose. You know, a lot of people have dreams and ambitions when they were kids, and as you go older, you drop it, you leave it, you settle, and that's because, you know, it's hard to pay that price of consistent growth or staying on it. Of course, some of us, we grow and we just know that, okay, maybe I never really wanted this, but generally a lot of people settle because, you know, it's hard to pay the price of transformation. But I want you to become everything you want to become. I want to become everything I want to become, and I want us to become it together. So I mean, that's what this journey is going to be. I mean, from mental things to spiritual things to emotional things to financial things, we are becoming, you know, the best version of ourselves. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. I mean, leave a comment, let me know that you're watching, subscribe, share this video with somebody. If you need someone to cheer you on, I mean, drop a comment. I'm going to be rooting for you. And see you in the next one. Bye.